A good morning to all our viewers and welcome to Live at the Watering Hole, where we're starting off at Tortillas Camp in Kenya this afternoon with two beautiful great crowned cranes. Just doing a bit of grooming here on what seems to be a slightly overcast day, but as usual, very, very busy around the watering hole. Good way to start. My name is Jaapie Potgieter, and I am going to be your host this afternoon. And I'm very, very excited to see what we got in store. As per usual, this is the best time of the day around watering holes. And of course, we've got the cameras up around many watering holes, and I'm sure that there is something of interest that will be found this afternoon or spotted. Now, what's also interesting about these birds, the other day I was fortunate to see chicks for the first time. But we can see, even though these two big birds are kind of in a relaxed nature, just grooming themselves, there's a lot of other little birds flying around. And it looks like there's quite a few flocks of tiny little seed eaters that's out and about. You know, seed eaters, because they eat mainly seeds, they also need to drink a lot of water. Well, their water intake is generally a little bit higher than other birds, as it also helps softening the husks of the seeds and help with their digestion. And in the background I can hear quite a bit of weavers around, as per usual. Usually some weavers around watering holes, good place to build their nests. But imagine you had such a elaborate coat that you had to put on every day, only they don't put it on and they can't take it off. So imagine all the effort these birds must spend to enable them to look at their best constantly. Well, it's even more interesting, it looks like the one's doing it standing on one leg. And of course, that feature there on the head, the crown, which they are named after. And a very, very unique bird, very difficult to see in some areas. They do also like to roost in areas where there's shallow water with trees in and around it. I'm not sure what these cranes were up to earlier, but judging from their behavior now, they might have even roosted within this area. But indeed, a very, very pretty bird. Now, what's quite interesting is this bird, like many other large birds, have had quite a bit of issues with encroachment on their habitat, and due to that, find that their numbers have dropped significantly over the last century or so. But there are a bit of good news, and their numbers are picking up in certain areas. But from what I've read recently, it seems like there's a little bit less than 10,000 of these birds left. And they like to form pairs. They're regarded as a monogamous breeder, which means that they usually form a pair that stick together Ooh, there we go. Sun's out. That's must be quite a relief. Quite a nice. You can see the one bird just gazing up at the sky there. Now the nice thing about the sun is the sun helps these birds to maintain the health of their feathers. But while these birds get themselves ready, let's head over to Olifants River and see what's happening along the banks. Oh, amazing! One of my favorites. And from what I can see, it doesn't look like there's much happening along the Olifants bank, except some well-earned rest. Now this is a very, very nice view of what seems to be quite a large crocodile, Nile crocodile. And interestingly enough, Nile crocodile found throughout Africa, named after the river Nile, of course, where it's got a very prominent history all the way from Egypt down to the southern African east. But what a spectacular animal. And as we can see, it's just enjoying the sun's rays. It's just seemed to come out. Now what's interesting here is the crocodile's obviously found a little rocky ridge with some sand and silt that's built up there, which is what he's using to bask. But it looks like there's two opposing streams actually on either side of this bank that the crocodile's laying on, which is very interesting. Although I think that's just a little bit of an illusion created by water moving on the outskirts into the gully, creating a little bit of a swirl on the outside of the bank, I'm sure. But what a great view. So this croc would have spent quite a bit of time in the evening, probably in the water, maybe hoping for a meal, or depending on the time of the year, like now, where things are suddenly starting to cool down as we approaching our winter time in southern Africa. Crocodiles like to spend quite a bit of the evening in the water where it's a little bit warmer. So that latent heat from the day's sun's rays will keep the water at a nice warm level. It's good enough for the crocodile to spend its time in. And of course they're also nighttime predators. They've got excellent eyesight after dark. We've got a question from Animal Lover, a very interesting question, asking, do you think crocodiles will ever go extinct? Animal Lover, that's a very, very difficult question to answer, to say yes or no. I think, judging from their evolutionary history, the fact that they've been around for eons and even since before the dinosaurs, there is a potential that they will not go extinct anytime soon, I'd say. That's for sure. I think they are highly adaptable, even though they haven't physically changed much, or their niche hasn't changed much over the past few thousand years. I think they are so well adapted for what they do that I think they've probably got another few thousand years ahead of them. Depending on the fate of the planet, that is, of course. But yeah, I think they're very well adapted. They can fit into any situation if they need to. They're quite resistant to disease. So I think they've still got another good few eons ahead of them. What is interesting though is during the colonial era in Africa, or from the start of the colonial era, their numbers dropped quite drastically, up to a point where they actually became protected in some areas. And then their numbers bounced back quite well, especially in areas with large bodies of water that provides ample nesting space. And which is something, and I'm having a look at this riverbed here now, the bank at the back. You can see it was washed quite a bit from this past rain season. There were massive floods in this area, especially around the Olifants River. This river grew to a substantial width due to water that came through, and also higher up in a lot of South Africa's rivers that flow east. The practices like agriculture and so forth changed the areas around the river banks, and that affected the rivers in a big way, with all the rainwater in the country running off and coming down in massive amounts, and it washed big parts of the sandy riverbanks away. And sandy riverbanks are very important to crocodiles, especially during their nesting season. So yeah, I think depending on habitat and how the planet fares in the next few thousand years, I think crocodiles there's a rather good chance that they'll stick around for a bit. We've got another question from Jamal asking, how often do crocs eat the hippos they share a watering hole with? Well, Jamal, it depends on how often hippos die near populations of crocodiles. Now, I've seen a number of times where hippos have passed away due to natural causes. Of course, where the crocodiles would come in after a couple of days and they would start feeding on the carcass. Oof, and look at that. What a beautiful view of the magnificent Olifants River. Olifants, of course, the Afrikaans word, the local name for elephant. But that is a very, very beautiful river, this. And Jamal, from what I've seen, I have not really seen much crocodiles hunt hippos. They do tend to go after the babies, but it would be a risky business, as a hippo is quite a large animal, and potentially could do a lot of harm even to a large crocodile. So only really when hippos pass away, then crocodiles will be there to dispose of the carcasses, which is part of their natural role within the ecosystem. Just look at these beautiful banks. It's got some nice vegetation on that side. But yeah, this river had substantial amount of water pass through here in the last scene here. Well, we're gonna head over to Kenya, where we have quite a beautiful flock of birds to have a look at. Oh wow, not what I was expecting. And from the looks of it, it looks like we got quite a mixture in amongst this group. Now it looks like there's a few quillias in this group, which I know is a bird that is certainly quite numerous, especially in grasslands, and these birds do tend to gather in huge flocks, often near water. But there's a couple of doves around, a couple of weavers, and they're all sitting in a thorn tree, and all it takes is one little push and then they move. But what a sight! How busy is that? Now it's quite interesting with the East African birds. I always need to make sure that I look very carefully before I give an ID, because they have a lot of birds that look very similar to the Southern African region, but some of them might be a little bit different. But when it's hot, we do tend to find that a lot of birds congregate around watering holes this time of the day. And I'm sure most of these birds, I can see the red bills there, they look like red-billed quillias. I can see some birds are a little bit more red than others, but of course the small little birds tend to use thorn trees like this one, which I'm pretty sure is a tortillus or a umbrella thorn, which is what the camp's called after, I'm sure. And they sit there. When birds gather in large flocks like these, then there's a lot of benefit for them. I know there might be a little bit of competition for food, but certainly protection, the group reaction to potential predation, as well as other threats. They learn from that, and of course other birds tend to join them, and they might also benefit from it. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the birds, it's a little bit more of a chestnut color, might be chestnut weavers. And quite a unique little bird, not found in southern Africa. Now Jane's asking, are all of these birds related? Jane, that's a good question. I am not 100% sure exactly what the relation between them are, but the quillia certainly are, being the same species. But the weavers, I don't think they are related to the quillias. I would have to make sure from my side, but I think what you do find is sometimes, like a lot of the sparrow type little birds, they are related, and they also tend to flock together. And some of the little seed eaters are related in the larger scheme of things. So Jane, I'm not 100% sure. I would have to have a look at that. Jive Bunny is saying greetings from the UK and welcome back. Thank you, Jive Bunny. Good to be back, and good to hear that you are joining in this afternoon. Shina RD is also saying hello and welcome back. Thank you, Shina. It is great to be the host this afternoon, especially this time of the day. There's not much to complain about when you're looking at a watering hole. There's always something happening, whether it's small or large, and it's always interesting. For me personally, I enjoy it because you always get to learn something new. But from one side of Kenya, a tortoise camp, we're going to head over to the Masai Mara, right on the other side. Oh, where we have an elephant. It looks like he's on a mission. Hoping that he's heading to a watering hole. Have a look. I see something there in the grass. Oh, just ahead of him. I thought it might be elephant dung, and maybe he was about to stop. But judging from the fact now that the elephant's standing out in the sun, I can clearly see he's got a bit of wet mud on him, on the legs, all over. So I think this elephant has probably just come from the water, and he might be moving to an area to feed, or he might be following the trail of other elephants. But as
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
Morning, you two. Hello.
When the Mara turns green, life surges, the air hums, the earth stirs, and the wild comes alive. Here, the wonder never ends. It just changes color. Every storm, every sunrise, every sweeping vista is an expression of wild magic. Visit the Masai Mara. Experience the magic.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
That, no matter how sturdy that little plant and its roots are, and then of course poles of grass. And what's interesting in this part is, you see, this elephant, normally what they'll do is once they pull the grass out, they often give it a bit of a shake and then put it in their mouth. Often they just bite off the inflorescence or the flowering parts of the grass. But this elephant looked to just be stuffing itself. So it's probably had a good cool down session and is ready to feed. Well, looks like we lost our feed of our beautiful young male elephant, but we are at Jackie's Dam in the Sabi Sands, in a very, very lush Sabi Sands, as we can see. And what a sight. There's something in the water there, and I wonder if our viewers could guess what that is. It must be very hard to tell from such a full pond. But just look at that beautiful, beautiful greenery still, even though we're moving into our dry season. Winter time in the southern African lowveld, which is where the Sabi Sands are situated, means the drier time of the year. But yeah, nice to check in here at Jackie's Dam, but we got our elephant back in the Masai Mara, so I think let's head back there and see what's happening with him. And our elephant's hiding, I'm told. I have not... Oof, I can see a bit of movement there. But the Masai Mara, as always, is just such a special area. We know that we get large herds of elephants in this area as well. Just look at that, we can see a bit of the hills, exposed rock there at the top. Now, as elephants do for such a large creature, it's incredible how... There we go. He's just popped out on the right hand side of the large bundle of shrubs in the middle. But what an amazing thing. Such a large animal just disappearing like that in the landscape. And of course, their grey skin, like most pachyderms, provides surprisingly good cover. Now he stopped a bit to feed, and I know that the vegetation, the groups, the types... Oh, there's some zebra there in the background. That's nice to see. But as one moves up from a hill, from down in a gully up onto a hill, the vegetation changes in certain areas quite drastically, especially in rocky parts, especially with fertile soils like those found here in the Masai Mara. And hence you'll find sometimes as the elephant strolls past those well sought after plant communities, it might stop a little bit, and then from there it'll move into a more patchy, selective manner of feeding, or it'll move between patches in a selective manner. But clearly this elephant is on its way somewhere. It is following something, I would say. Probably a group of animals that's moved past in the area. You can see it's also moving into the wind if I look at the grass and the plants moving, which means that it's very likely following a scent trail. So Ellie PR is saying hello Wild Earth team, and hello everybody else. Hello to you too, Ellie. Great to hear that you're online this afternoon and watching. And then I've got another question from Animal Lover. Why is it only zebra and wildebeest that migrate? That is a very good question, Animal Lover. It is not only wildebeest and zebra that migrates. I just need to say that right at the start. But there are also other animals like black-eared cob in certain parts of Africa. Generally speaking, those are animals with specific diets, especially grass eaters or grazers, and they tend to move according to rainfall and available food sources, especially if it's animals that gather in large numbers like zebras and wildebeest. But we can chat about that a little bit more. I think now that our elephants disappear here, let's first head over to Tau and see what's happening there this afternoon. Where we have waterbuck and something else which I got, looks like more waterbuck. Wow, this is actually like I've seen Tau since it's decent rains they had. Ooh, that's an interesting thing to see. And this is quite a classical example of a male's interest within a female waterbuck, and he doesn't seem to have, from that funny smile he's made, he doesn't seem to have gained something of interest or finding the female attractive, I'd say, at this point. So what we saw there was the Flehmen grimace, as it's known, and when male mammals like this waterbuck male pulls up its lip like that, it opens a small opening in the palate that creates a bit of suction, and that way minute chemical traces can be extracted from smells. And you can see it looks like this male is just going around from one female to the next and inspecting. This is a very beautiful male. You can see he's also moving in a manner that shows he's big and important in this region. A very, very interesting behavior, very important behavior for males to test the sexual readiness of females and seeing if they're receptive. You can see this female is actually just presenting herself, and the flicking of the tongue, which is associated behavior. There we go. Sniffing the back end. There we go. That's the Flehmen grimace. And let's see if he finds the information gathered from that sniff to be desirable, then he might follow the female around. But you can see it doesn't look like it. It looks like he's just testing. It looks like the females don't mind, which makes me think that there's a good chance this guy is one of the dominant males in this area, and these females hanging around there knows that. You can see there's a young male there, but that one's still very young, very short spikes as horns, so it's likely not perceived as a threat to the grand position. And there we have a young waterbuck inspecting the male. Interesting. This is very, very interesting to see. Ooh, okay, there we see. Let's see, it looks a little bit more interested in that female, it seems like. But while he's inspecting, he's getting inspected by a young female. There we go, another grimace. Now, we were talking before we came over to Tau, we were talking, oh, there we go, let's see what happens. You see, he looks a little bit more interested in this one. And let's see, leg up. Now this is part, oh, you can see the male's getting aroused. Now this is, what we're seeing here is typical mating behavior. Usually walking with the legs up, putting it between the legs of the female. She might move away a little bit and make him work for it a bit. But that's kind of part of the foreplay here. A little bit of a dance. So let's see what happens. But to get back to the question that was asked earlier by Animal Lover about the migration of zebra and wildebeest, we got another comment from Lady Macbeth saying elephants migrate, and saying hi to everybody at the same time. Hi, Lady Macbeth. That is very true, Lady Macbeth. Elephants do migrate. Elephant migration routes and patterns are an extremely complex topic to discuss, actually. And I think over the past few hundred years it's been so drastically altered due to human influence that and human settlement, that I think currently there's a huge effort. Well, currently it's been ongoing for a number of years, but I think there's a great effort being put into trying to understand exact elephant migratory routes. You can imagine a large animal like an elephant would move massive distances, and depending on the season, the time of the year, it would be very, very hard for elephants to stick to one route, like the wildebeest or zebras, for instance. I know some regions like southern Africa had massive zebra and wildebeest movements, and springbucks. Zebra still in Botswana, moving between southern Angola, Zambia and Botswana. But I think it was more, it's only rather recently that people really realized how many different migrations there used to be, and now with large open protected areas spanning massive landscapes, we're starting to see some of those migrations returning, or elements of those migrations returning. But we got another few comments from Catherine U2R saying a beautiful landscape. Indeed, Catherine, I agree, especially now with all the beautiful yellow flowers around. It is a beautiful landscape and lots of water. Ellie PR is also mentioning the little grebe in the water. Oh, that's a very keen eye. LEPR, very, very happy to hear that you spotted that. I didn't even notice that. I think I noticed a moorhen. Oops, looks like we lost our feed there at Tau. Okay, well, we're back at Jackie's Dam in the Sabi Sands. We're looking at a beautiful leadwood tree overhanging a very, very, very full Jackie's Dam currently. But we also had another comment from Shaina RD saying that I just love beautiful horned-mailed antelopes. Agreed, Shaina. There is something very spectacular about the antelopes with the large horns, like the waterbuck males, the sable, the roan antelope, even the gazelles. But even though we've had a brief check-in on these hippos, we're heading back to Tau. There we go. The beautiful horned male waterbuck. Now this is an interesting developing situation here. I think that female is still with him, interestingly enough. So maybe there is an interest for both sides here. But he seemed to settle down. He doesn't seem too worried at this point. I think he's done his rounds, he's found a female, so now we'll have a look and see what happens. But now that he's laid down, not too sure if anything might still happen. So while he takes a rest and she feeds, I think let's head over to Tembi. Let's see what's happening on that side of the world. Where we have an elephant and some impala in the background. That is amazing to see. This elephant is quite well covered in mud, and as I'm sure it must be quite a humid and warm tropical climate here at Tembi. Now we got a very interesting little animal at Mzuri called a dik-dik. So I think we're going to leave this elephant and go quickly there to see what it's up to. Wow, that's something quite special to see. A little dik-dik at Mali, Mzuri in the Masai Mara. Oh, what a beautiful little antelope. Not something that you get to see too often in southern Africa. Well, at least not South Africa. This little antelope is just, you can see there's a little shrub there and it's just picking off the leaves, and it looks like it's already cleared some of the nearby branches. And being such a small little critter, it's obviously quite secretive and very alert. So what a nice little spot with food all around. We got a greeting from Melanistic Marble saying, "Hi everybody, I overslept." Well, Melanistic Marble, sorry to hear that you overslept, but you're still well in time for quite a bit of the show. And you've joined at a good time. We're looking at a dik-dik in the Masai Mara. And just have a look. This little antelope is literally just going from one shrub to the next. Now obviously I'm not sure what that is, what it's feeding on, but the smaller antelopes tend to feed on a lot of the very green leaves, so a good quality food. Oh, wonder what gave it a spook. I wonder if we can find it again. What a perfect little patch of shade under the thorn trees. There's bound to be something good there for a small dik-dik. And let's see, this is what makes them survive out here, is the fact that they can quickly, when they use their speed like that, they can just disappear into the landscape. And yeah, that way these little antelope stay alive out here in the open grassland. But oh, there we go. He's just popped back out. How amazing. He's shaking his head vigorously. I'm sure, Sham, there's quite a bit of biting flies in and around. Now these little antelopes, you see, it looks like a little black stripe below the eyes. Very, very large eyes, what these little antelopes known for. And you've got this funny little nose. But just beneath, in the corner of the eyes, is what we call its preorbital glands. Now those glands play a very important role in communication between these antelopes. But of course, because of that, they also draw quite a bit of biting flies. And as we can see, currently, this little antelope is struggling with them. In the eyes, around the neck, of course the legs, the top parts of the legs, the sensitive part, and that's what makes him move like that. If he stands still in one spot for too long, he gets it. But I'm sure he'll just stay between these little patches of denser vegetation. That's what they do. They tend to hide quite well. But I'm surprised that it's so pestered. It looks like there's a nice steady breeze going. But the moment it moves into the thicker bush, then of course there's less resistance. Or more resistance from the plant, less breeze. Oh, there we go. Well done to our zoomies for finding him again. But now I'm not sure if this is the same one. I think this might be a different one. You can see the horns there. And maybe it's a pair. It looks like a little bare patch there on the ground where it was laying down and blending in seamlessly. So well done to the zoomies for finding that. There we go. Just between the two trees. You can see it will stay around these little patches of thick grass. Now, what's quite interesting, so this one looks like the male, and often with these smaller antelopes the female is a little larger. And let's look at that. Oh, there we go. I was hoping for that. That looks like a phlegm and grimace from a dik-dik. I actually can't say that's something I've seen before. But looks like another little bare patch. There we go, a little scrape. You can see now the flies is pestering this one as well. But he's obviously checking out the area maybe where the female was laying down earlier, and also marking a bit. Now the glands between, or the glands in the eyes, of course, playing a prominent role in its communication. Another way they communicate is also through scrapes and urinating in patches like that. Of course, there's also glands between the hooves. And all of those are, well, this behavior, what we're seeing, is all a part of maintaining communication within their small patch and territory. This is quite special to see. A beautiful little antelope. Now, let me see. We got a greeting from Joan Mello saying, "Good Saturday, Wild Earth and friends." Thank you, Joan Mello. Same to you. Ooh, we had a bit of an issue there with our feed, but we are over to Tortillas, where we got some busy yellow baboons and quite a bit of small birds and insects flying around. And quite nice to see the baboons are in a very relaxed mood this afternoon, casually just scouring the ground there for something to eat. But let's have a look. We got another few comments. So we have from Mr. Hue 1987 saying that the Jabulani yesterday was a great leopard in the evening. That's amazing news, Mr. Hue. Very, very happy to hear that. Very fortunate to be seeing a leopard at Jabulani. And I'm sure as the season grows a little bit drier and there will be more regular visits from certain animals down to the watering holes, we might see an increase in predator sightings around the watering hole, at least.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
I'm Butch James, World Cup winning Springbok fly half. Rugby has taken me to many incredible places around the world, but it's Africa's wild places where I feel most at home. This July and August, after the Springbok tests against England, Wales and the All Blacks, join me on a series of luxury safaris. There we will share some rugby stories, open fires and some incredible wildlife sightings, all under the African skies. See you in the bush.
We're going to be witnessing the relocation of a female cheetah that was born right here in Belgefontein Game Reserve. She's been moved to Lapalala Wilderness.
When the Mara turns green, life surges, the air hums, the earth stirs, and the wild comes alive. Here, the wonder never ends. It just changes color. Every storm, every sunrise, every sweeping vista is an expression of wild magic. Visit the Masai Mara. Experience the magic.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
Baboons certainly have an interesting, cute tail, and what's also interesting about their tail is it looks always like it's got a, well, it's certainly got a kink in it, but it looks like it is almost broken in a way, especially the large male baboons. However, baboons being old world monkeys mean that they don't have any prehensile tails. And look at that. that female baboon is sitting, fully enjoying being combed. You can see every hard to reach part. Look at that. Just parching the hair in the hard to reach places. And then whatever fleas or skin parasites there are, it's getting picked up or picked off by the other baboon. Nibbled off. Ooh, there's a nice big male moving past in the background. And you can see there's some attention paid by the females to him. Male baboons obviously play a very important role within baboon society and hence are very important. They certainly look the part as well. So whenever they do move past, there's definitely some consideration given to them. A respect earned. Through hard work and often violence amongst the male members of a troop. But I know these baboons are very, very fascinating to watch, and I always enjoy them. But I think I heard that the zoomies managed to relocate that little tuk-tuk. So I think let's head back there and have a look to see if we can have another view of it. Oops, I've just heard that they've... Oh, there we go. So I heard they've just lost him. He was here. And of course... Oh, there we go. Here he is. On the side of the tree. And well done to the zoomies for finding this little tuk-tuk again. But now that we see him there, it's interesting to see. It's quite a interesting habitat. We can see it kind of moves out from the hilly grassland into a little bit more dense vegetation up on the hills. So this is a perfect spot for these little tuk-tuks. They need the cover of the taller grass patches and shrubs. It's also where they get their food from. But what an interesting little antelope. Very fortunate to be seeing it this afternoon. I'm certainly enjoying this quite a bit. And like I said, it's not an antelope that I'm too familiar with. So seeing it go about its business is fascinating. Well, I think that was a valiant attempt, but I think this little tuk-tuk is making it quite hard to get a good view here. So I think we're gonna head over to Tembe to do some birding. Ooh, where we've got a beautiful grey heron. You can see all those holes in the background. You can see the mud that's been kicked up and moved around. Definitely the work of elephants. So some of these pools are quite muddy, good for frogs, little fish, It's a brilliant spot for this heron to be. And currently I think it's just enjoying the sunlight. And have a look. I'm wondering why it's not got its wings spread out, so with the breeze maybe it's not hot, it's just kind of standing. Check around, maybe it's making, oh there we go, something's drawn its attention. But yeah, what an elegant bird, what a beautiful bird. You can see the eye. Obviously these birds have extremely keen eyesight. And then it's got that spear tip like bill, which is perfectly designed for striking fast down into the water, and also to grab onto tight and slippery, to grab on tightly to slippery prey like frogs, fish, sometimes something else. Herons have quite a variety in their diet, and even though it's not often seen, we sometimes kind of overlook the fact that they will pretty much go for anything they can. Just look at the beautiful markings down the neck, along the head. And of course, while taking in a bit of sunlight and enjoying the breeze, it's probably deciding where to go. I think it's got its pick around here with all the watering holes. Maybe he wants to go somewhere specific where something else is blocking him from going. You can see, if you look at it straight on, it looks quite funny, but it's got a very, very narrow turret-shaped head. And of course, talking about the bird's eyesight, that they can look all the way down to the tip of the beak. And for an incredible hunter like a heron, you need to strike with lightning speed. Provides this bird with a viewing angle that goes all the way to the tip, and therefore allows it to accurately judge its movements, to strike at a moment's notice. And have a look, it's also checking up in the sky. There might be other birds flying out above. Even though herons are generally birds that tend to kind of stroll slowly along the edges of water holes, it's quite unique to see this one stand out in the open like this. It looks like it's trying to resist the breeze. The breeze seems a little stronger than what I thought initially. Just taking in its surroundings. Almost looks like it's got something in its mouth from this angle. There we can see that eye now that the sunlight's falling on it. It's quite a prominent yellow eye. Seeing a bird like this certainly does remind one of their ancestry, being the dinosaurs, of course. Just a little bit differently adapted. But there we go. I see this bird has now looked around very carefully, and I almost thought it spotted something, but I don't think there's anything of interest to it currently other than enjoying the sun. So while this heron gets a bit of sun basking in, I think we're going to head over to Jabulani, where we've got a giraffe. Nice. Looks like a lone female giraffe, if I have to judge from looking at her ossicones. Just standing, you can see the lower jaw rotating, so she is chewing her cud, but she's not fully alone. There's some ox flickers there on the neck, busy combing through the fur, looking for that skin parasites. Oh, there we go. Another giraffe coming in the background. Let's see. Maybe this one doesn't look like a female. There we go. There's another one and another one. Oh, wow. That's pretty awesome. It's kind of almost as if they know the camera is watching them now. Now they've all decided, oh, she can't take all the camera time her own, so we got to show ourselves. And this is an interesting thing about giraffe. Giraffe being such a large animal, so tall, you can see looking at the size comparison between these giraffes and the trees, it makes you think those trees must be pretty tall. But the height advantage they have allows them to often see their members over quite a large distance. And we can clearly see the white stripes behind the ears of these animals. All four of these animals are actually clearly showing them to us currently. But that, along with the white behind the ears, are believed to serve as what we call follow me signs. And that's kind of a way to notice each other over large distances. And giraffe being such a tall animal with such keen eyesight, they've got very large eyes. They're able to see each other over large distances. Often you'll find that the group of giraffe, when they spread out over a region, they can be a few hundred meters apart, but still part of the same group. Unlike, say, animals that live in the lower regions of life, like a group of zebras, for instance. But we got a question from Jane asking, what do giraffe contribute to ecology or the environment? What is their purpose? That is a good question, Jane. So a giraffe generally help with one of the things that they help with, that as part of their ecological role, is pollination, actually, interestingly enough. Quite different from, say, a butterfly, for instance. But giraffe, as they feed, they move, especially between the thorn trees. Giraffe are specifically adapted to feed on thorn trees. In that way, they also enable all the pollen that stick to their faces while they feed during the flowering season. They move from the one tree to the next, and that way they help with pollinating flowers on other trees. In that way they also help with seed dispersal, of course. Giraffes do tend to eat pods of certain trees. Ooh, that's quite nice to see. Some giraffe drinking action, always something special to see, in my opinion. Always heralded by the screeching noise of oxpeckers. When the giraffe drinks, the oxpeckers drink. Very often, actually. But yeah, we are on the ecological role of giraffe. Giraffe certainly helps with pollination of thorn trees in particular. They also tend to crop trees to a point where certain trees are beyond the reach of other species, and they play a role in creating a certain browse level for certain thorn trees, which makes them unreachable by other herbivores, and therefore the trees also tend to survive a massive onslaught. But besides that, the giraffe also remove old foliage. They also help with the regrowth of certain parts. So yeah, they are a very, very interesting animal. And also tend to pay quite a lot of attention to others. They don't like being alone, especially the females. The bulls don't mind. Now, I wonder if the others have moved off. It's interesting. I can see the trees are moving quite a bit with the wind in the background now. I've also noticed in the past that if it is a very windy day, giraffes tend to huddle together in the denser areas. Maybe it's for a bit of protection, maybe it's to get out of the wind a bit. But it looks like this group has moved, and she's kind of just jumping around between them to see what they're doing, while also getting groomed. Well, so we have a question from Animal Lover again. Do giraffes have a breeding season? Generally speaking, giraffes kind of do. It depends on the area they're in. It kind of aligns also with the rain season. The birth season usually aligns with the rain season. In South Africa, you find that there's quite a bit of baby giraffes getting born during the rainy season, and female giraffes often gather in an area, but it depends on the area where they are and how the rainfall in that area is in particular. That will kind of determine when giraffes' breeding season is. But technically speaking, no, they don't have a breeding season, and technically speaking, they can breed at any time. And you often find that bull giraffes do wander great distances in search of females that's in heat.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
When the Mara turns green, life surges, the air hums, the earth stirs, and the wild comes alive. Here, the wonder never ends. It just changes color. Every storm, every sunrise, every sweeping vista is an expression of wild magic. Visit the Masai Mara. Experience the magic.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
You can see only the few. I don't see any massive bulls, but we do find that even young bull buffaloes, they sometimes move away from the herd once things start to dry out, or they form their little groups on the outskirts. But dense cover, often around watering holes, is a brilliant spot for buffaloes, especially buffalo bulls, where they'll spend quite a lot of time. Granted, they've got enough food and water, then they don't mind at all. Just look at that beautiful dead tree. Now, earlier we had a very interesting question about the birds we were viewing at Tortillas Span. There was a large flock of red-billed quillias with some weavers. And the question was whether the birds were related. It was from Jane. And I heard that we can look at those birds. They are still at Tortilla Span in the tree, so I think maybe let's head over there and we go and have a look there. Here we are back. Oof. That is quite the sight. Look at all that movement. It almost looks like one of those puzzles that you need to squint your eyes to kind of form a picture, like a hidden bird picture in and amongst all of these. Now over here with this view we can see a little bit more clearer. We can see the clear red bills here of the red-billed quillias. a bird that also varies quite a bit in its color across different regions, but known for forming massive flocks. In some cases also regarded as actually one of the most numerous birds on the planet. But yeah, we've got we had a question from Jane asking if they are related, weavers and the red-billed quillias. Apparently they are. From what I've found, I didn't know that. So the red-billed quivia is actually a species of weaver bird, and thinking about it, if you think about the way they nest, they certainly do weave. They do form these large breeding colonies, usually in well-protected thorn tree thickets, and they form these small little nests that they make all over certain large thorn trees. But yeah, they, both the weaver birds as well as red-billed quillias, they belong to a family called Plockidae, and it's the true weaver family actually, and it also contains all the small seed-eating birds. And if you come to think about it, seed-eating birds, most of the small ones, even though it's very delicate compared to some of the weavers that nest near the watering holes, whose nests we see often, they do have weaved nests which they make from thin, very delicate grass stalks. But yeah, what a magnificent sight here, seeing all of these birds. And it's interesting to see, it kind of seems when you look at it, then there's a group moving that way and then a group this way, but there's so much happening here. I can imagine that a group like this can definitely clear out an area should they need to. Quillias are fascinating birds. It's amazing. I can't believe that between all those thorns, each of these little birds find a spot on a branch where there's not a thorn to sit. And it looks like on the one branch everyone's looking to the back, and on the other branch everybody's looking to the front. Now normally, another thing is also, these birds are normally quite noisy. They form a very loud cacophony of noises, especially around the breeding sites during their breeding season. Now we got from Cornelia, we've got a comment saying that quillias are quite a pest to farmers. Cornelia, that is quite true. Unfortunately, as amazing as it is to see these very large flocks, which apparently can number into their hundreds of thousands, and some accounts of millions of birds together in a flock, and they usually have these very large, almost sky darkening flocks in some areas, especially during a dry season. They tend to gather, or the end of the rain season, and in that case they can cause great damage in certain areas, and farmers do not appreciate quillias at all in certain senses. The other thing is also along with other natural disasters like a drought, for instance, or drought years, for instance, these birds can do massive economic damage. But that was quite nice to see, and quite nice to see that they're still hanging around here. I think while these birds go about their business here, let's head over to Botswana to see some wildebeest. different sight from what we've had this afternoon. Already quite dry. A nice herd of wildebeest here. You can see they're starting to move. Normally you'll see it's kind of like a bundle of wool that starts to untangle once wildebeest start moving. When they're feeding in a spot, one will start moving and then the rest will slowly start following in trail. And I'm wondering if they're heading to water, that salt pan. But what a different sight, what an interesting sight. The wildebeest itself also has quite an interesting color here. They're not, well, they seem a little less dark than normally, although their coat is quite variable, especially in sunlight. They seem to blend in quite well against this tan background. Here and there, some green trees or shrubs still around. But what a different terrain, completely different. This afternoon we've been fortunate to see quite lush areas and still quite a bit of greenery, but this is more the kind of color scheme that we would associate with the Southern African dry winter period. And this is a decent sized herd. It's also that time of the year where the younger wildebeests are a little bit larger, so they seem to blend in within the herd. And there's quite a bit of good grass here. You can see most animals have their head down feeding. A wildebeest especially is a short grass specialist, or an animal that prefers short sweet grasses. Hence they can be quite selective of the areas where they feed. Now I've just heard that there's a crocodile swimming at Tau. I think maybe we should go have a look there while we leave this wildebeest to feed for now. Nice. Some nervous looking red-billed coots there in the background. And look at this crocodile, just carefully moving. Not trying to draw too much attention to itself. It doesn't look too deep here. I'm sure we'll get to see a little bit more of this animal, and I'm wondering what it's looking for. If it's looking for a spot to get out, maybe bask, or if it is looking for something maybe to munch. You can see a bit of competition there between the coot and what seems like a moor hen in the background. That's quite interesting to see. Chasing him out of his area. Maybe the crocodile's presence prompted that behavior. Sometimes animals moving through an area does that, but just have a look at this crocodile. This is pretty interesting to watch to me. You can see it almost completely under the water. Look at that perfect design. Only the nostrils at the tip of the nose, and then the ears and the eyes are above the water. The rest of the body below. Very difficult to judge the size of this animal. And then also, if it goes under the water now, you completely lose it. But this way it can creep up to the perfect position to be in place for an ambush. But where this crocs now is would be very difficult, and I don't think we're going to get another view. I hear also the camera at this tower is a little bit unstable, so we're going to head back to our wildebeest to see if there's any changes there. Ah, here we go. Oh, there we go. There's a younger wildebeest as well. I was wondering earlier. That was probably one of the later members to the herd. Glad to see that he survived this far. I'm stopping to check around, but I think these wildebeest are moving hopefully towards the water now. Always one male standing facing the other side. almost like a guard watching, making sure all of them are moving in the right direction, making sure everybody comes past. What an interesting looking animal, that's for sure. The blue wildebeest. Or brindled gnu, which I actually prefer. From the French name for the animal is gnu, which refers to a weird bellowing sound that the males make when they do territorial displays. And then of course brindles being stripe-like features on their coat around the neck up to the shoulder. I prefer that to blue wildebeest because they do tend to vary quite a bit in color depending on the region they're found in. And we also get quite a couple of different subspecies of wildebeest or blue wildebeest. We also had a endemic species to South Africa called the black wildebeest, which used to be known as the white-tailed gnu. Looks quite different from the blue wildebeest. Here we go. Some are already moving away. This is quite nice to see. This is a very big herd actually, much bigger than I thought initially. Maybe not even go as far as saying maybe a few hundred. Initially I thought close to 100, but now I might say a few hundred. And that looks quite idyllic. You can see they're wading all the way into the water to drink. With quite a bit of confidence, also trying to get away from the masses, kicking up muddy water, just trying to get to that cleaner, cooler water, a little bit further, deeper in. So Animal Lover is asking, why are they vocalizing? Animal Lover, they can vocalize. Well, they've got various vocalizations. They are quite a noisy animal, or quite vocal, especially on their way to and from water. They tend to communicate with each other, just to keep contact with each other, especially related animals. Animals in certain situations, it's kind of formed social bonds for the time being. It's also kind of to alert each other of anything that might be around, potential danger. But of course then they've also got their display calls, males, that vocalize to draw attention to themselves and how important they are. Okay, now something spooked them there. I'm not sure if it was the reaction from the others, which it very likely was. You can see that one standing there on the little island. Seems like quite an old bull. Just looking out over the water. I'm not sure if it's just age or it's experience that makes it stand there on the island and not wade into the water like some of the others did. But judging from the size of that herd, I'm sure there's still others bound to come down as soon as the next one takes that leap of faith and braves the deeper ends of the watering hole. But just look at them, always in line, following that natural order of things. And once they're done, they move. Oh, over here we can see a little bit more green grass. So a good spot to stop and feed a bit. Whatever is left there. Now, I was mentioning about the color variations and the different species or subspecies rather of wildebeest that there are quite a few. They are all within the Conocates genus, and then they all Conocates taurinus, which is the species. So they're the same species, but they are just different subspecies. And there is the blue wildebeest, which is found throughout southern Africa, referred to as the blue wildebeest, although all of them in general is also referred to as the blue wildebeest. And there's the eastern white-bearded wildebeest, which is the white-bearded gnu. That one is found more in Kenya, northern Tanzania, central Kenya, the Rift Valley. Then there's the western white-bearded wildebeest. Apparently there's a slight difference between the two. I'm not too sure what that might be, but that's the one which forms a massive portion of the Serengeti migration, the Serengeti Mara migration. Then there's the Nyasaland wildebeest, which is, or I think the other name for this one is also the Johnson's wildebeest, but this one is unfortunately extinct in Malawi currently, but still found in Tanzania and also northern Mozambique. A very, very large wilderness area between northern Mozambique and southern Tanzania to the central parts. And then there's the last one called Cooksen's wildebeest. Now, this one is apparently quite a bit darker, and it's restricted to the Luanga Valley in Zambia. And now a subspecies, it means must have been some sort of a genetic separation that's happened between all these subspecies due to various reasons. But yeah, interesting to think about. Also something that one usually doesn't when you see an animal, but then once you start to notice certain differences in certain regions, I think it's good to think about. And it also affects behavior. So when one thinks about a wildebeest, you think about the migration in East Africa, but generally speaking, wildebeest in South Africa, although there were migrations to some extent, they're not really found at the level of those in East Africa anymore. Now we got a few comments from Mr. Huai 1987 saying the wildebeest need to be careful, and LEPR is asking if there's a croc down by the cam. Potentially, I know though that would be the logical threat. Of course, the other also being predators like lions being on the outskirts of watering holes. Animal Lover is asking if they're not alerting to predators, but I do not know if there is any around Animal Lover. It could be. I mean, it could also just be the wind. These creatures can be a little bit skittish at certain point. Oh, look at that. One male clearly trying to show his dominance in and amongst this group. There's obviously a lot of dynamics going on here that can be quite complex. Ooh, there's a one-horned wildebeest. Shame, and the animal's hips are quite evident, or quite prominent. Not sure what happened there. It looks like a female, maybe an older female. Or a male, I couldn't see clearly. I would think male due to the fact that maybe it broke from a fight. But while these wildebeest are going about their business here, I think from the Kalahari salt pan, let's head over to Tembo Plains and see what's happening there. Where we have hippos. Tembo Plains, Zimbabwe. What a magnificent sight. And judging from the movement of the water around where the hippos are laying, I'm sure they are laying on a nice shallow bank that's created there. And what a good place to be basking out in the sun. Hippos like basking in the sun, so this is something we do see during the middle of the day often. And if they can do so while halfway submerged, that's even better. Hence also the fact that they move together. You can see the little ones right in the middle there, probably as a protective strategy, because I'm also sure that in the deeper channels here there's some large crocs lurking around. But on this matter, we got a question from James Hotham, who was saying that he's seen crocodiles take animals when they try to cross rivers, and asking if hippos do so too. Now, James, sometimes I've seen hippos actually go after animals crossing through water, but I wouldn't, definitely not to predate on them, not to try and catch them to eat, more so to deter the animals from moving through that patch, or maybe venting a bit of anger or frustration on those animals. Hippos are known to chew on dead animals on occasions. There's also been one or two clips taken over the years of hippos actually drowning or killing antelope trying to swim in the deeper water when they run away from predators, like wild dogs, for instance. I myself have seen that with a young kudu once, where a hippo attacked a young kudu after it was chased into a dam due to wild dogs chasing it. In that case, I think it was more of the combination of emotions from predators being around the water's edge to something invading its personal space. Ellie PR is saying she loves to watch hippos. So do I. Ellie, whoa! Looks like there's a tiny hippo. 2 tiny hippos there in the middle of the pod. That's very special to see. Baby hippos. I do enjoy watching them. Sometimes I feel sorry for them as they just kind of have to follow the mother around, and you'll notice that they do tend to try and get on the back of the larger animal just to be in reach to get some air if the water's too deep. So I'm sure a good rest in the afternoon like this is very, very much welcomed by the babies.
When nature calls, Maui is the only answer. Satisfy your wanderlust and take to the open road in one of our fully equipped motorhomes. Boasting a fridge, gas stovetop, AC and bathroom, our motorhomes are comfortable and spacious, making any self-drive adventure in the Kruger or garden route memorable. Whether you travel alone, as a couple or the whole family, Maui has a motorhome for you. Maui, home where you roam.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
When the Mara turns green, life surges, the air hums, the earth stirs, and the wild comes alive. Here, the wonder never ends. It just changes color. Every storm, every sunrise, every sweeping vista is an expression of wild magic. Visit the Masai Mara. Experience the magic.
When adventure calls, answer with Brits. Take on Southern Africa's most breathtaking landscapes from behind the wheel of a fully equipped 4x4 or SUV. From tents and bedding to a fridge and full kitchen gear, everything you need is already on board. And with 24-hour roadside assistance, you're free to go further and explore with confidence. Open roads, total freedom, no limits, just the journey ahead. Brits, equipped for adventure.
You can see they look nice and oiled up in the sun, secreting a natural oil that have pigments in, kind of acting like a sunscreen, with antibacterial properties. And even though a hippo looks smooth from a distance, its skin is usually quite textured. You can see there was a little one just trying to get in under the head of that other one, but hippos tend to be quite personal about their space, and they, especially the males, they tend to have quite a few altercations with each other. And sometimes we find that hippos also are subjected to quite a bit of pressure from bigger animals, from the bigger animals and the more dominant animals, in which case those very large tusks that they wield can do quite a bit of damage. And hence there we can see quite a bit of texture on the skin marks. Male hippos, younger male hippos, often get bite marks on the back end when they move away after fights or after an altercation. And therefore, when you do get the chance to get a close view of the skin, it's quite fascinating to watch. But see that hippo under the water there, it looks like the little one was just trying to find a spot to get up there. As they do. So Ellie PR is saying, I think I've seen one mama with her tiny newborn a long while ago here on the left side at the edge. Ellie, that's a very special thing to see. A tiny baby hippo is an extremely cute little animal, and sometimes overlooked in a large pod. But yeah, it is a very, very special thing to see. Shina RD is saying thank you for taking us through a very enjoyable live at the watering hole. Shina, I agree with you. I think it was a spectacular afternoon. I think there was lots of variety, and what a nice way to kind of go around between the different regions and the fascinating critters that inhabit them. But yeah, I agree. I think it's been a great afternoon. Just have a look at them. Oxpeckers carefully looking. Hippos not minding at all. But one of my favorite critters, and I'm sure as a lot of our viewers as well, the elephant. And I think what a great way to end our afternoon. From one large pachyderm to the next, to an even larger one. So we've had a brilliant afternoon, and now we can see it looks like it's heating up quite a bit, and that's why it's a little, you can almost feel the animals getting a little bit more relaxed. And you do notice when things get very hot, it's often after the herd animals with the females and the young have had their drink to move back into the shade with the little ones, you find that the bulls move in. And this should be interesting. The guy coming down to drink is a little bit larger than the guy on the water's edge. And you can see he's very aware of his approach. But of course these two seem to know each other quite well. Probably spending quite a bit of time. And notice how that elephant moves slightly further away. So there's definitely a bit of mutual respect here. But he doesn't walk right to the point where the other one was drinking. He moves a little bit away to move out of the personal space of the other one. Whether that be because it could be muddy around the edge where he's drinking. It's also a large animal, so a large personal space. You can see that one on the left seems quite a bit older, quite a broad base of his trunk, and you can see the tusks are quite well worn. Certainly an elephant that's had a few experiences. Joan Mello is saying thank you to Wild Earth. It was a great show, and you're saying everybody must have a great Saturday. Now, I heard at Old Donyo there is a lot of giraffe drinking, and I think it might be a good way to do the last 3 minutes of the afternoon. So I think let's head over there, let's leave our relaxed elephants and see what's happening there. Beautiful. Still at a nice beautiful green Old Donyo with a few young giraffe. Beautiful Maasai giraffe, also a different subspecies from the ones in southern Africa, of course, that we saw earlier. But have a look. It's always a nervous moment for giraffes to drink, but certainly one of the best places to see them is here at Old Donyo. And I love seeing these groups of giraffes, and of course all the insects around the little puddle of water that is Old Donyo Pan. Lots of little butterflies flying around there. Now something's alerted these giraffes, and that's probably why some of them have moved off. But this one seems to ponder. But Ellie PR is saying thank you for a great afternoon. Thank you for joining, Ellie. Wildlife Lady is also saying enjoyed the afternoon. Thanks to Africam, the Zoomies, and Wild Earth, and Lady Macbeth as well. From myself here at Live at the Watering Hole and everybody else at Wild Earth, we bid you all a good afternoon, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I hope you join us again next weekend.